That's Meander's Mumblings. Okay, so as I mentioned, the Ninth Jedi, right? I think I even said this in our review with Cam. If people haven't seen that, you can check it out. We did a whole series review, episode by episode, spoiler free and spoiler full, of Star Wars Vision. But in that episode, I think I mentioned because this is so far in the future, I was actually surprised that Lucasfilm okayed it. But technically, as of right now, none of Star Wars Visions is canon. Some of it could potentially fit into canon without needing any tweaking, but in its current form, nothing is, which I didn't know. So I was trying to gauge which episodes were or couldn't be, but for the most part, you know. But even as I'm saying this, I understand that to some people that doesn't matter at all. Like a good story is a good story. So this might be maybe like a therapy session again. I might need talking out off the ledge here. Um, so we talked about how much I liked um, the Ronin, right? What's the first episode called?
The Duel.
The Duel. Thought it was really cool. Had a lot of implications that came along with it. Set up red lightsaber crystals, all of that stuff. And then we learned that book was coming out, a novel that told the story of that character more in depth. I'm not sure if it's a prequel or a sequel to that, what we saw on screen, but there is a book coming out about that character. And as I was looking up the book, I was like, but is this canon? Is this Star Wars canon? All this stuff since, 2015 that I've committed to my memory. I have this timeline of Star Wars all in here. I've tried to, up until the Rise of Skywalker, I really tried to consume every sort of Star Wars novel, show, comic book, whatever the case was. It was all in here at some point. And I even maybe I'll edit in a picture to the video here of my Star Wars canon bookshelf, where everything is not by size, not by width or anything, which would really bug me otherwise, but it's all in chronological order. Because I like looking at it and being like, and that took place next, and then that one, and that one, that could probably put on two parts of the shelf because there's a time jump. But a friend of the show, Malachi, Luca, who played in your D&D campaign pretty briefly, he always asked me if I would play in a game of his if he ran a Star Wars RPG game. And my answer is I would love to, but my mind won't let me. I can't actively contribute to something that's going against the story that I've already committed to memory. And I'm so anal about when a new movie comes out and there's stuff in there that goes against what has already been set up in canon, I lose it. I'm like, then why did I buy this book? Why did I read it? Why did I commit it to memory? If you were just gonna, write all of that out of the story, it's very frustrating. But then I guess it begs the question, and this is similar to does the ending matter? Does canon matter? Does a thing's place in the storyline matter if the story's good? Will, you're nodding your head yes.
Yes.
I agree, obviously, but I want to get both of your thoughts on does it matter and why, if so. So we'll start with you, Will. What do you think?
Need canon. Need to have an established story, or else it's just absolute nonsense. I don't know. I feel like you need to have some sort of structure to it. Because I mean, even if, for example, you look at some of D&D, I guess novel worlds that have been created and are kind of official ones. I think it just performs it just creates this structure that you need to have in order to I guess anchor the world that you create, even if it's something like D&D, Fae run stuff, where people can obviously create their own stories and insert them into those worlds, but you kind of need that structure. You need some sort of timeline. For example, if you create a world, you need to have a timeline of events that kind of help shape the world in order for you to have the setting to make your story, if that makes sense. Like Skyrim, for example, you have the Civil War going on, and like it's just like post, I guess, like a world war with all the elves and stuff like that, and like all of that is considered to be canon because those are like events that have happened and like need to have happened in order to have that story, like to create that world in which like you create your player character and story and all that stuff.
Yeah, I like, yeah, definitely. And I think some of it's like, especially with video games, when there's sequels and stuff, obviously everyone who played the video game made different choices. So some of your experience cannot be canon because not every, unless like it's a very structured, level based game, not everything can be canon. So the particular elements that are set up before are very important that those elements stay true in sequels and further stories. But you mentioned D&D, and I'm seeing as well as I have an issue there. I have never ran a game that takes place in a established world. Even if there were elements of those worlds that I love, like things from Eberron or Greyhawk or whatever the case, Faerun or the Forgotten Realms, if there's places or people or things, I just import them into my own homebrewed world because I hate inconsistency. I hate like I even hate if a player character in my game says something that I know is not true. It's very tough for me to be like, I'm gonna just let you work off that information and not correct anybody. And whatever happens to your players going forward on that information that may or not be true, that's your fault. I didn't, if you really wanted to know, you could ask, type of thing. And Luca, I know you're the same way. Like you homebrew your campaign settings as well. What are your feelings on canon?
You see, that's interesting because I've never been super into something that has multiple creators the way Star Wars has had. That's one of the main things I hate about Marvel comics. Like I've never read any Marvel comics. The fact that you have like 19, 20 different first Spider-Mans, like I think that's idiotic. Like just think of something new. Like I don't like that. So I'm not a fan of multiverses. I think they're stupid. They are just a gateway for lazy writing. To like, I just don't enjoy the idea where it's like anything can happen and it doesn't matter because this is universe 26Z. Like I don't like that. Just it cheapens the story somehow. It's like I've always read things that only like one or two people have created, and they've always been the ones that like started it and finished it. While you guys were talking about it, I thought of Game of Thrones, for example, like seasons like 5 through 8 are pretty much not canon. Like everything past the books is not canon anymore to me. Like I don't consider those legitimate endings to any of the stories. So like I've never been invested in something like Star Wars where we've had so many different creators, and up until a certain point it was canon, and then like, oh, the company that owned it got sold and now Disney decides what's canon. Yes. Like I've never experienced that with an IP that I love. I think like the only one is like maybe the Middle Earth universe where like Christopher Tolkien wrote a lot of the books. But I mean, he was the son of the original creator. So it's like although Christopher Tolkien wrote, I don't know, something like Children of Hurin, like that's still canon.
Yes. The interesting part there, like as soon as you said Middle Earth, I didn't think of Christopher Tolkien because for me, like I have a little bit of hesitancy to consider those books canon like I do. But for me, they're not the same experience as Lord of the Rings, even if like to somebody who didn't know, couldn't tell them apart. For me, like I know. So it's hard for me to be like, oh yeah, this is the Tolkien world when it's not Tolkien's world. It's Christopher Tolkien's world. It's sort of,
I mean, like he's getting like where he's heard these stories and has like direct.
Yeah, for sure.
There's definitely, there's like for that and like Fall of Gondolin, there's like a lot of notes that was just
similar to like Brandon Sanderson with Robert Jordan's.
Exactly. Like he like to finish the Wheel of Time, like Brandon Sanderson I think he said like something like near 1 million words of notes, as well as like just a few scenes mapped out being like, this is where I was planning to take this character in the end. And then everything else was just left to his own decisions. But like, So like I would consider, obviously that's canon. Like he finished the story and like completed all the character stories. Like that is canon. There's no question. But like with something like Star Wars, like you're talking about like, I don't know, 15 different books by 7 or 8 different authors. And then you have shows.
Oh, even more, dude. Even
exactly.
more
Like you have like shows, the animated shows, you have like comics, even like the video games. And then after all of that's done, Disney buys it. And then it's like, now we decide what's canon. Like that's what happened with Marvel too.
So the thing there, it's not so much Disney being like, this is canon, but this is not. It was sort of like everything that's not the movies right now is no longer canon.
Right.
So, you know, at that time it was the 7 movies, including the Clone Wars movie and then the Clone Wars animated series. And as far as I can remember, those were the only things that were considered actual canon and then brought forth. So everything that's been released since, I think maybe 2012, if I'm not getting the year wrong, has all been canon since, unless otherwise stated.
Mhm.
So for me, my first instance with that as something coming out after that time, besides the obvious things like Star Wars, Lego, Freemaker Adventures, or, you know, stuff like that, which is obviously not canon. Ronin was sort of the first one where I was like, oh, this is like a thing I've seen on screen, and you're telling me it's not canon. Why would I buy this book? Like, it's not going to matter when I go and sit down and watch subsequent Star Wars films or whatever. This story right here won't play a part in that at all. But I enjoyed Ronin. I really enjoyed the Duel that episode. So why wouldn't I want to know more about this character? But I can't get past the mental blockage of being like, for what? What's the, like, even if I enjoy it, it won't mean anything.
Mhm.
But you could apply that same statement to all fantasy. Like, even if I enjoy this, none of these things really happened.
Yeah.
So I don't know where I'm drawing the line. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like for me, since I'm not so invested in Star Wars, like I can watch it from like the outside and enjoy it as its own story. Like it doesn't matter to me if Visions is canon or not. Like I enjoyed it, the stories in it.
Same.
But I agree. Like if it was something like, for example, this upcoming Lord of the Rings TV show on Amazon, like I'm worried about it because I love Lord of the Rings. And it's like, this is made by people that have nothing to do with Tolkien and his legacy. And I don't know if they'll make it good enough for me to be like, okay, like I accept this as canon. And then if Amazon's like, yes, this is canon, like I don't know.
When you said Middle Earth for the first time, my immediate thought was Shadow of Mordor, being like, well, if I'm okay with playing that game through and enjoying the fuck out of it, even though it's not canon, like, why can't I read the Star Wars book? Like, but with the Amazon series, it does bug me too. Like, because we have like obviously J.R.R. Tolkien's written universe, combine that with the subsequent works from Christopher Tolkien, and then we have like the Peter Jackson verse.
Mm-hmm.
That's sort of the same thing. It's an adaptation of this bigger universe, but then it also comes along with like the Hobbit films, and I wouldn't even want to consider those canon if I was talking about the Peter Jackson. Yeah, I
Hobbit
know.
movies?
Yeah. But where does this Amazon one fit in? And when I watch it, will I feel like it's Lord of the Rings if it doesn't have that same aesthetic quality that the Peter Jackson films had? Not at all. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. If the elven armor doesn't look the same, if the fonts aren't the exact same, I'm gonna have like a big problem really believing it's Lord of the Rings, even though it is. But like, I can't really get past that.
Yeah,
I mean, I won't lie to you either. I don't think it'll be good.
I'm not.
I think it's going to be
it.
bad. Like, I genuinely don't think they'll do a good job with it. Like,
oh no,
I truly don't think they'll be able to do anything. I mean, I'm optimistic. I want to be optimistic, but I'm not. Yeah. I mean, we'll see with the Wheel of Time. Like the first images of the Wheel of Time, some of them have come out after the trailer. They look really cool, and like YouTubers that are huge Wheel of Time heads, they're like intrigued by what's being done. But I am genuinely concerned about the quality of the Lord of the Rings show. I don't know that it'll be good enough.
I'm not looking forward to it.
Yeah. Well, I feel like I I appreciate you guys' help in this, but I don't know if my feelings have changed at all. I think you guys agree with me. So at least I feel less irrational about it. Maybe that's fair. Uh, okay. That'll wrap for today. We'll pass over to you, Will. What do you got for us?
Yeah. Just as a side note, we're still trying to figure out a new alliteration for Will's wondrous wisdom. So
Give us your best.
Weenie Will's wizardry.
Ooh, I like that. That's spicy.